Let's begin in the United States, where polls in the midterm elections are now closed and results streaming in. The battle for control of Congress hangs in the balance. Control of the House is still undecided, though Republicans have a decent chance of winning a narrow majority. Now, in the Senate, votes have been counted in for big races in Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Nevada. But control of the Senate could come down to a runoff in Georgia in December. Let's bring you details of the major happenings on Election Day.
As it's early Tuesday afternoon, many locations had estimates of more than 100 people in line to vote, with an expected wait time of over an hour.
Very nice to see you.
And in Nevada, many voters waited in lines outside of polling locations in the snow.
I'll always remember this day because I was waiting in line for an hour in the snow.
It's actually been fun. We were talking that it's good to come vote in person because you get that community experience, and I've made friends.
The battle for control of the U.S. Senate is too close to call. The parties are neck and neck. Democrat John Fetterman celebrated his Senate win in the key state of Pennsylvania, beating Republican Mehmet Oz. He addressed a crowd in Pittsburgh early Wednesday morning after he was announced the projected winner of the Pennsylvania U.S. Senate race.
I'm proud of what we ran on. Protecting a woman's right to choose, raising our minimum wage, fighting the union way of life.
With his win, Mr. Fetterman will gain the Democrat a spot in the Senate that was previously held by a Republican. The hillbilly elegy author J.D. Vance, who was a searing Donald Trump critic before he converted into one of his most loyal allies, has defeated Democrat Tim Ryan in Ohio's Senate race.
We've been given an opportunity to do something, and that's to govern. And to govern to make the lives of the people of Ohio better. That's exactly what I aim to do. And because of you, I get a chance to do it.
Control of Congress hangs on the result of tight Senate races in the states of Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, and so far, yet to be called. The Georgia race is one of the most closely watched battles in the 2022 cycle. Officials say there will most likely be a runoff election in 4 weeks to decide a contest between Democrat Senator Raphael Warnock and his Trump-backed challenger, Herschel Walker.
I don't come to lose. And I told you he's going to be tough to beat. He's going to be tough to beat, but let me tell you what, he got the wrong Georgia here, don't he? So I want to tell y'all, if you can hang in there a little bit longer.
We know that when they're finished counting the votes from today's election, that we're going to have received more votes than my opponent. We know that. The people of Georgia showed up and said loud and clear that you want a senator who's going to do the work for Georgia.
Meanwhile, Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis has won a large victory to stay in office, setting him up for a potential 2024 presidential bid. And on election night, former President Donald Trump went on to celebrate a string of major victories for Republican candidates.
We had an incredible rally last night in Ohio, and you saw that in Florida, Marco Rubio, we had an unbelievable rally for Marco the night before with the heaviest rain I've ever been involved with.
While we await the final result of the 2022 midterms, exit polls show that the economy and cost of living were the biggest concerns for voters as suspected, but abortion rights were also a major issue.
And what would be the implication of the final results of the midterm elections? Global affairs analyst Habib Salah joins me live from the United States for more on this. Good to have you join us.
Morning. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
I know it's morning where you are, but let's look at the projection going into the midterm elections. There was a red wave that was projected for Republicans, but that doesn't seem to be happening. Republicans are tipped to get a narrow majority in the House of Representatives. why do you think that they are not seeing the red wave projection that was declared just before this election?
So typically, with midterm elections, the leadership of the House would, normally shift between parties, and yeah, the expectation was that Republicans would have a sweep. With the current results in now, it doesn't look like that. Though they may eventually, take leadership of the House, but the difference between what we're seeing now and what was anticipated is not actually. There are still so many democratic strongholds, though the economic situation in the country, plus other highly debated issues, have led to losing some seats. But those strongholds will still return blue.
Mm. And let's talk about election strongholds. President Trump, former President Trump, is seen as someone who has a stronghold on the Republican Party. He backed some candidates who were also election deniers, and those who talked about how the election was stolen. But some of them, the elections have lost this election. For example, Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania has lost his election. Herschel Walker, it has not been declared, but he's trailing Warnock, as we see there in Georgia. What does that say about his hold on the Republican Party, and how Republicans also view, or how Americans view his idea that election was stolen?
So the conversation around the former president's loss and how the reputation of the integrity of the election process generally in the US has been called to question is not something that all Republicans buy. However, the base that the president appeals to has been able to run with that narrative, and we can see it play out differently in these results. There are those who will ignorantly believe that the election was truly stolen, and as a result of that, they are ready to defend that belief all the way. And there are those who reasonably know that the institution in place, will not allow for such to happen. And as a result, they are still voting along their beliefs and ideologies as well. Yeah. And one thing about this election, if you pay close attention, is, you find that in some cases, I think people went to vote and they were splitting their votes based on the personalities and not necessarily the parties of
Absolutely.
the personality of the candidate.
Absolutely, because we see that, I think we see that play out in a place like Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis has won a second term in office. And by a huge margin, people didn't see that coming. He also won, and this is a surprising part, he also won in Miami-Dade, which is a stronghold of the Democrats because of the Hispanics majority who live there. Does that sort of position him? Does that give him a springboard to run against President Trump in for the primaries in 2024?
So President Trump has been able to put a strong foot forward in terms of leadership of the Republican Party. I think the idea that the fact that he wasn't challenged during his term by those who truly held down the strength of the party has enabled him to foster his beliefs on the party, and there are a lot of directions in line with that. A lot of allegiances also in line with what former President Trump believes in. The next presidential election is going to be really interesting. Unfortunately, the Democrats are fighting against, inflation. There are also issues about abortion rights and all of this. So it's a tight place to be for Democrats. And whatever the case, irrespective of the direction that the Republicans are taking, once these factors act against the Democrats, the Republicans automatically become the beneficiaries of such issues or challenges as they come.
And talking about Democrats, what would this mean if the Republicans were to take the House? What will it mean for President Biden and his bid for 2024?
I know that he has always tried to present bipartisanship as one of his core drivers. However, we know that when it comes to politics, there are different things that play out. To an extent, it may affect some of the, the bills they're trying to push, and then the opposition is going to become stiffer. But still, the Senate too is very critical. And then the Republicans losing Pennsylvania to suggest to a strong extent that all hope isn't lost for the Democrats.
Mm. And as we've been
But the
hearing,
loss of
please
Stacey
go ahead.
Abrams and Roger is quite painful, though.
And as we've been hearing from some members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, if the Republicans were to take the House, could we also possibly see an investigation into the Biden administration and possibly impeachment moves as well?
I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But one thing that I know is that a lot of people who have jumped on this election denial narrative are only doing so to appeal to their bases because of their political aspirations. I think for most of them, they genuinely believe that the election was lost and not stolen. But then, in politics, sometimes the other party also tries to flex their fangs when they assume leadership. So I wouldn't, we shouldn't be surprised if that comes on the table.
Global Affairs analyst Habib Salawu, thank you so much for talking to us. We have our eyes still on the midterm elections.
Thank you.